Good morning.
Good morning.
It's bright and early.
It is, man.
What time did you get up today?
I don't know, 5 something maybe.
Yeah, 5:45 for me.
Pretty late.
Yeah.
Pretty late. A little draggy.
We had my birthday dinner last night at the country club with my family.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, it was fun. It's great. I tell you.
So is your birthday?
Yeah, it was March 4th.
Hey, man.
What is that, Tuesday?
Yeah, happy birthday, bro.
Thank you.
It's 60?
7.
Hell yeah.
My God, that's old. It's like I can't believe it, you know?
Is it a little surreal?
Yeah, it is. But you know what? I'm still going strong.
Dude, you're you're doing better than I am, man.
I don't know about that, but I worked all day Monday. I worked all day Tuesday.
You worked Sunday, too.
I
You're
did.
just talking about it.
I was working all day Sunday. I just got back from LA on Saturday afternoon from work. But yesterday morning, man, I got up at 6 o'clock and I hammered it. I got so much done yesterday. It was
feel good?
mind-boggling. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah, that's good.
So checking those things off, buddy.
Yeah, man. Just a big checkbox. Life's just one big list.
I can't tell you how many times I have thought about what you kept saying. You said it multiple times in this show.
Uh-huh.
Business is just one problem after another. It's so true.
Over and over.
You can't be discouraged by that, though, because you just have to expect that.
Yeah, you do. And then you have to let things just kind of shake out on its own.
Sometimes you do.
Man, I mean, there's a lot of things like I'll get pretty angst up about some stuff, and it's just like, man, it's going to be, like, I know you love these things. It's going to be what it's going to be in a way. There's only so much you can control, you know, and you can't get all worried about competitors, what's going to happen in the market. I mean, you just got to keep driving, man.
Well, when you're another 20 years older, like me, you won't worry about stuff nearly as much. I mean, it's the only blessing, well, not the only blessing of age, but it is one.
Well, I remember when I was when we first started working together, I was like 33 or something. And I remember sitting down with you and Ed Friedrichs over dinner one night. And I, told you guys how old I was. And y'all were like, oh, man, if I could only go back to that age or whatever. But then y'all are both talking about how, the one thing you wouldn't want is to go back there and worry like you used to.
Yes, exactly.
It's like you just don't worry about stuff as much.
You've survived it. You know you can survive it.
Yeah, you know that outcome, as long as you just keep doing the right thing, you keep working, you keep just solving the problems, it usually pans out pretty good.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Ed Friedrichs because he was an outside director. That's the topic of our discussion today. But before we get started,
yes,
this is another episode of
That Big Talk About That Small Business. We're getting a little better at that.
Anyway, so it's great to be back. But we're going to talk about outside directors today. Ed was an outside director when we first bought the company back. Well, we hadn't even bought it back. I had a piece of it.
Yeah.
Gave me a piece of it, the lender, to start with. And then I put some cash in and I bought a little bit more. But we had Ed. Ed was a very experienced guy.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he's not with us any longer. But he was the president and CEO of Gensler, the largest architecture firm in the world. And we serve architecture and engineering clients.
Yep. It was a good outside director to have on the team, man.
Right. And that's one of the reasons to get outside directors is you bring somebody in who either worked in a client or in the industry that you serve.
Yeah.
Who can give you some insight and maybe has some connections that would benefit your business.
Yeah. A lot of credibility.
Yeah.
I mean, the PR part to it, is substantial.
Yes.
Just to, involved in the speaking engagements or whatever it might be, you know. And I think on that, it's even more accelerated today if you do it appropriately, like what we're doing right now, having conversations, right? If you have an outside director, you bring them on a talk show. I mean, you can just have those long conversations that help your audience out. It just gives you so much credibility.
It does. It shows that you've got some insight into what their issues are and all, or could. But that's kind of funny, another thing I've discovered, I've been an outside director probably, I say outside director, sometimes I got paid in ownership, but I still wasn't an employee.
Yeah.
I'm doing one right now where I get paid in stock.
Okay.
But it's interesting. If the company has a plan to exit at some point or raise new equity capital, the right outside directors can really give you credibility. Like one situation I'm in right now, where we're talking to a potential investor, he only wanted to talk to me, which I think is kind of interesting. Because he thought I had more experience and knowledge. So, I think sometimes it does help. I mean, to get that capital, if you have somebody that the investor feels is like a credible influence on things.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a, as an investor, by the way, one of the best analogies I've ever heard in my life, this is great for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I heard it, but investors are like horses. They got eyes on the two sides of their head. Yeah. And they're looking for whatever to come and take what they have.
Yeah.
Right? They're basically prey. Entrepreneurs are like wolves, eyes on the front of their face, like going out and hunting. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so there's this tension between them that has always happened, which is great. I like the wolf analogy, but I mean, I can also understand on the investor side, you're looking for, people will spend money.
Oh, sure.
Real quick without, worrying about the risk. But as an investor coming to an outside director, I would think that there's going to be more of a non-biased, non-wolf approach. Like this director is at a higher level, protecting the organization, the outcome of the business from that experience they've had.
That's the idea. I mean, I think too, I don't want to get too far off topic, but a lot of times when companies are out looking for outside capital, the management is overly optimistic.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The investor, as you said, is very skeptical, right? So if you put somebody who's overly optimistic with somebody who's very skeptical, the skeptical person may feel that the management doesn't have the credibility.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes the outside director has to kind of bridge the gap.
Yeah.
And go, this is where things are, let's be honest about where we are, but this is what we're going to do to get it to the next level.
Yeah. And as a director, you've spent the time with the management. You've kind of already gone through a lot of these conversations, and now you're able to, Eric over there, he is pretty goofy and bullheaded. However, we've been talking for 6 months.
Yeah, and here's his track record too. In the end, okay.
Yeah. I basically need you as kind of like probably my director now that I think about it.
But so anyway, but I think a lot of small privately held companies don't realize the benefits of bringing on outside directors, not just from the client base, but let's say your plan is to build up and sell to private equity. Have you got somebody out there you can bring on who's done this more than once?
Right, right.
That could be very helpful to you because they understand how the whole thing works. Or if you work in a heavily regulated industry, can you get somebody who comes out of that regulatory body who can act as a intermediary between you and the regulators?
Yep.
That can be huge.
Yep.
Okay. They're like a lobbyist almost for your company.
Absolutely.
And, there's, in general, I think if you've got a young management that doesn't have the experience, sometimes bringing some gray-haired people in who've grown a business and been through all the travails of that.
There's one thing too that I've been noticing, with a couple of entities I've been working with is when you have directors, there's another level of accountability for the management team.
Absolutely.
It's one thing for, the internal management team to have a report to deliver to their peers in management. It's another thing when they have to go see the directors, right? And you got a bunch of experienced people in there with a lot of credibility.
It's a good point.
They got to make sure, they probably triple check their numbers this time, thought about it a whole bunch. And it makes them better, so much better,
Well, it's the same thing too. Like the CEO has some accountability.
Absolutely.
Because like in your case or mine, let's say we had a big chunk or we owned 100% of the business. Having somebody else to question you and who's got nothing riding on it other than trying to help you.
Right. That's a big deal. I mean,
that can be very valuable.
Dude, I'll admit right now, I need a lot of accountability. Yeah, just sure. With a couple of entities I have that where I just need to check in,
right?
And say, man, what are you doing, Eric? You need to you need to do some changes within the organization.
Yeah, and then you say, you don't understand what I'm doing here.
You don't get it, man.
You don't get it.
You're removed. But then I get out of the conversation, then a week or two go by, I'm like, damn it, man, Mark was right. It's the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're all kids, It's like going back to childhood. Your folks tell you, they give you the wisdom, they care about you.
Right.
They want your best interest. Don't do this, don't eat that. You're like, whatever. And then you realize later on, oh man, I should have listened.
They were right. That's that famous Mark Twain quote. It's like he couldn't believe how dumb his dad was when he was 17 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then by the time he was 25, he couldn't believe how much his dad had learned over the last 8 years.
That's so true, man.
That is so funny.
One thing about like this whole director thing, that I think that maybe entrepreneurs are it's a little bit of a mystery. And I mean, to be honest with you, it's in some parts still mystery to me, is what are the mechanics of getting them onboarded? Like the details, do you have to pay them all? Does it have to come with equity? Does it have to come with a mixture? I mean, what are the, do they legitimately have voting stock?
That's
that type of stuff.
Yeah, a vote. Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, the answer is there's no hard and fast rules.
Okay.
Sometimes there are people that just want to help you out.
Yeah.
I've never been an outside director where I didn't get paid.
Okay.
And it's very wildly. And it sort of depends on the company and what they can afford and how big they are and how much time it's going to take.
All right. So let's take it from this standpoint. I got a new business I started. Mm-hmm. And Mark, I really respect your credibility and your experience. Need your help.
Right.
Will you help me out? And I don't have any money to pay you.
Yeah.
And I own 100% of this. I'm really nervous about giving any equity up.
I might not be able to help you. I mean, seriously, there's only so much time to go around.
No, I get it. But
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of times the position that the entrepreneur is stuck in.
Yeah, it could be. I mean,
So on that though, so let's say, okay, I can't help you.
Yeah.
But then as an entrepreneur, I'm like, okay, well, I definitely can't pay you, but now I'm talking about equity.
Here's another way to look at it though. Okay. Yeah, you said you didn't want to give up any equity.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that may not be smart because a very small chunk of equity, voting rights are not. I mean, I'm never a big fan of devaluing any ownership interest by not having voting rights. I'm just not in favor of that. I don't like it philosophically.
What did you mean?
It doesn't feel like real ownership if you don't have voting rights.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
For the stock.
Gotcha. Okay.
So what do I care if I own 99.5% and somebody has 0.5%, but they have voting rights?
Okay.
Doesn't mean anything. Okay. So
if you were to come on the board, ownership, you'd want equity with voting stock.
Yeah, I would want absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, but if you don't want to do, and I would expect that equity to be undervalued, whether it's an internal formula or you're giving me more than what my time would cost.
Okay.
In other words, if what I'm doing for you should cost $20,000 and you're going to pay me in equity, I might need $30,000 or $40,000 worth of real value in equity. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay.
It's not liquid.
Yeah. It's you can't cash it in.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot riskier.
But how would you be convinced as a director to know that whatever my synopsis is of the valuation at that point,
Oh, I'd have to get myself familiar with the company.
You'd have to get in the numbers, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to join any company's board if I don't know what the numbers are.
Okay.
And I'm also going to insist they have D&O insurance, by the way.
Okay.
Because directors and officers insurance is critical. It's not that expensive. You don't want to end up getting sued by something the company does that you had absolutely no involvement with. I mean, that can happen.
Yeah.
But let's go back to this for a minute. So a lot of small companies, they're growing. Let's say they got 10 people, they got 30 people, whatever, and they're growing. And they say, we want some outside directors. We're going to hire 2 or 3 outside directors. I mean, generally sort of a good place to start, in my opinion, is if you're going to have 4 meetings and you're going to have communication in between the meetings, you need to pay like 20 or 25K at a minimum.
All right, 4 meetings
for each of those people
per year, once a quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need to pay 20 to 25K minimum for those people.
Okay.
Now, if you're hiring the right people for this, these people make money. Okay.
Yeah.
They're making $400,000. If you hired them, you wouldn't be able to afford to hire them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $1 million a year, whatever. So you're getting their expertise for 20 or 25,000, and you can call them anytime you want. That's a bargain.
Yeah.
So if I bring 3 of those experienced people on, maybe I'm paying 60 to 75,000 for a year. How in the world could I hire anybody who brings all that to the business?
Yeah.
That's the way you need to look at it.
That's the entrepreneur's perspective,
right?
Outside board of directors.
Yeah, and it's cheap. It's cheap for what you're getting.
And would you say that like a good entrepreneur would have this kind of written down as to what they have expectations for, right? Say, hey, we're going to have 1 meeting per quarter.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And the meeting's going to be an hour and a half.
Right.
Right.
Or 4 hours or
4
a day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's good clarity.
Yeah.
Right. And then, by the way, I'd need to be able to call you basically any time, and your responsibility is to get back with me.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say it quite that ugly, but, hopefully you'll be available if I have questions along the way or we need to talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll pay you $25K a year.
Yeah.
And how the terms of payment work out? Like, I mean, you just
I don't know. You can pay them once a quarter, or you can pay them over every month, or whatever works for your system.
Okay.
But that's sort of typical. Now, that's sort of a minimum.
Yeah.
If I'm talking about joining a company that's got 300 employees in it, and it's doing $50 million a year in revenue, I'm probably not going to be working for 20 or 25,000.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, in those cases, a lot of times you'll either get paid in stock, and there's going to be so much stock, and hopefully, again, you're getting paid in undervalued stock that if you grow this company or if you sell this company, you're going to get some kind of a premium on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or you're just getting paid more to do what you do.
Yeah. How do you, as a board of director in that situation, value what your compensation is?
It just depends. I mean, it's all subjective.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like, how much do you like the people?
Yeah.
I hate to say it.
As a director, how much you like
the people you're working with.
Yeah.
And how much work is it going to be? And, where does it fit into your scope of all the things you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes, your time is more, less available than others.
Yeah.
Because we're starting stuff, right?
Yeah.
We all got, that's just one thing we're doing. We all got like 10 other things we're doing.
Right.
So sometimes it's timing is better. But I mean, I think the most I ever got paid was $100,000. And that was no stock in that situation. In other cases, I got paid 20 or 25,000. I could buy stock. Like one situation was you could buy stock at last year's price this year. So if it went up, you knew you had an immediate gain on it.
Gotcha.
You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of a motivator.
And I think the thing that can be a little bit intimidating for entrepreneurs is like, pay special attention to what we're talking about here, about there's the difference between a startup company looking for a board of directors and how a board of director perceives that involvement versus a mid-sized growing organization.
Yeah.
Because this discussion, here's the thing I'm trying to get at. The discussion of stocks, premium stock, all this type of stuff gets complicated.
Right.
And the second you're into that realm, now you got to talk to attorneys. That costs money. All this in the mind of an entrepreneur, all this stuff is complicated and costs me money when I should just be making freaking phone calls and doing sales. That's my mindset. It's like, why am I going to mess with all this for some soft return versus I know I can make calls and go dog it out and get some sales in, and that's real money to me. And that's where a lot of times my conflict has happened in my mind.
Yeah.
But a lot of, because I would say most of the messaging we would hear about board of directors, it is complicated because what you see in the news or what you see, I guess, just in general in school is a little bit more of a complicated board of directors profile, stock, all these legalities and things, and it becomes...
Well, it doesn't have to be like that.
No, I know. That's what I'm expressing, though.
Right.
Like to a new entrepreneur, like you don't have to make it this complex thing.
You could just make him a non-voting advisory board member.
Okay, so
I'm in one of those right now.
So
that have been.
That's not a director. That is an advisor.
Yeah, you're just an advisor to the board, but basically you function exactly the same way.
Okay, so let's
don't vote and second things. But at a board of directors level, it's not like everything. Hopefully, nothing comes to a vote ever. You go for consensus.
Yeah.
It's not like 4 against 3, the Supreme Court or whatever.
But
the company, you know what I mean?
And so, for clarity for the audience, right? And look, Mark, a lot of times, like you're so smart. Like I don't think you understand. Like people may not know what you're talking about sometimes because you're just so incredibly.
I don't know about that.
Smart.
Maybe I'm just a poor communicator.
No,
but
I don't think you are.
Maybe that's it.
No, but I mean, I'm just trying to put myself in shoes of a new startup. Yeah,
sure.
Doesn't know what they're doing, or doesn't know a lot about this stuff. But a board of director is a different, criteria and area and purpose than an advisor to the company, technically speaking, because a director has most likely has voting stock on the board to make decisions.
They don't necessarily have to have stock, but they have voting rights as a board member.
So they come to there are official board meetings that they're attending. Where if you're an entrepreneur and you have 100% equity in this company, and then you but then you offer voting rights and a board director, you have a board meeting that you as a CEO of that company, you have to abide by what that board is voting at the end of the day. That's where it can get to.
Right.
And so
now, of course, you've got 100% of the stock, so you elect the directors. Shareholders elect the directors. So if you don't like them, you could just get rid of them. You vote them out. Sorry.
Right.
But
but that's a tangled ass mess as well.
Right.
If it comes down to that.
Yeah. So
I just think that there's something to discuss, like what you're getting yourself involved in if you're going to go for a board of directors. Now, I think the value to that is that there's a much more deep engagement with your board of directors than you would have with a board of advisors.
Okay, but that's, again, don't get confused about this.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a board of directors and there's a board of advisors. That's not what I was saying, though. I'm saying I'm an advisor on the board of directors. I'm just like a board member, but I'm not officially a board member.
Okay.
So let's say there's 7 people on the board. I'm the 8th.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not like we have a separate board of advisors that sits over here that nobody has to listen to.
Right.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to just work as an advisor for the company for that kind of money. They want to do that, they're going to pay us $500 an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a different deal.
That's good clarity.
This is board of directors. Okay. But whether you're official or not, like one case of a firm in New York, they have a requirement due to licensing laws in the state of New York that 80% of the directors or 75% have to be licensed architects. You see what I mean? So if there's 2 of us on there and that drives it below 75%, I don't need to be a voting member, but for all practical purposes, I am.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so what you were articulating earlier, you can, if you're looking for just an advisor,
Yeah.
You might just pay a high consulting fee for some advising for 1 hour or two here and there.
Yeah, or an ongoing arrangement where you meet with them every month or whatever. But yeah, that's a different deal.
That's a whole different deal.
Right.
We're talking about board of directors where you are, if you're bringing somebody on, like it's a formalized, and because part of the value here, I think, as a board of director, is it does help give you credibility back as a board
Exactly.
director, right? I mean, you sit on the board with these 4 companies, and this is really part of your income. It's part of your career.
Yeah.
You know, at that point, I think entrepreneurs need to understand that too, right? Like you build, sell, exit companies, you become on boards, you're at this level to where you're advising as a board of director across multiple companies. That is my career path.
Yes. I think it's a lot for a lot of people who retire from their business or their high level job. They become directors. Yeah, that's sort of a normal career path for people who don't want to just be done.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, they still want to be engaged.
Yeah.
They get energy from it. They're giving back. They're activated. Their mind's engaged, right?
That is a big part of it. It's not just the money. I'm glad you said giving back.
Yeah.
Because that's why the company that the outside director is joining and the management of that company and the relationship with those people is so critical.
Yeah.
If they suck your energy, and they don't listen to you. It's like a bad mentoring situation. It's like, Eric, I want you to be my mentor. Meet with me once a month. You do, and then I never do what you suggest. Okay, forget that.
Yes.
All right. So there is a giving back element to it that you have to feel like you're valued or it's not worth it.
And it's
no matter what you get paid.
That's right. And I think that's what's, to get back to the original, like what we're trying to express here to a small business owner. The value of having a board of director, is that if you can find a board of director that is wanting, like you have a relationship, they want to give back to you. There's out of all the people you deal with in your business.
Right. They're your advocate.
Yes.
Yeah. They want to help you.
They want to help you. They don't have a different incentive. They're not trying to make money off of you. They're just trying to be compensated for their time because they have to be.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. That's it.
But then they're engaged and invested with you.
Yes.
To see you personally win.
Yes.
And successful.
That's the ideal scenario right there.
Right.
That's the ideal scenario. So let's just step back for a minute and go back. I'm a small company. I'm growing. Okay. I feel like I don't know everything.
Right.
And I could have other tentacles out into the marketplace to help me win work or business.
Yeah.
Why not bring 1, 2, 3 people on that maybe they cost me $20,000 or $25,000 a piece per year.
Yeah.
But I get the benefit of their advice. I get them. I can publish that. I can publicize they're on my board. They can help me sell the company later. They can help me attract investors. They can give me credibility with my bank. They can give me advice that I need on an ongoing basis because they're experienced. I couldn't hire any one person for $60,000 or $75,000 a year who's going to do that.
That's right.
Okay. That's where people need to, in my mind, need to be thinking. Voting, not voting, who gives a shit?
Got it.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It's going to function the same way. Boards, we always go for consensus. We're not voting on things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, if we are, it's down to the disaster point.
Right.
You know, do we pull the plug or not? I mean, it's like, I was reading just last night an article on KTM, largest European motorcycle maker, is going bankrupt. Their board voted to close down the company. Okay. That's a different deal. You know, where there was opposition, there were 2 factions. So, yeah, I think that's the way you need to think about it. And it can be extremely beneficial to the small business owner. Most don't do it.
Right.
They don't want anybody telling them what to do, or they're fearful, or they don't want to expose their weaknesses and deficiencies.
I would say another
ego.
And I would say a third reason is they don't understand the process. They don't know what this means.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like it's something that's not really clarified.
No, it's not. It's hard to go find a book on this that tells you what to do.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it is, man.
Yeah,
like,
it really is.
And I mean, for the audience's sake, like what I've, as we're talking about this, like the credibility of your conversation on this point is really high. How many boards have you sat on over the years?
At least 13 or 15. Some of them I was an owner on and some I wasn't.
Yeah.
But they weren't like my business per se.
Yeah, because you used to travel around. You'd be going to board meetings all the time back in the day.
I still am on some boards. I'm on 2 nonprofits and 1, 2, 3, 4 for-profits right now.
Do they have to? So, okay, if you get this board, do you have, is there an expected formality about how these board meetings are to be handled?
Well, I mean, part of it depends on whether it's a corporation or it's an LLC.
Okay.
LLCs they have a board of managers. They don't have a board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of corporations. I hate LLCs generally, unless I'm not going to change ownership, then it's fine. Then I don't mind it. But so yeah, there's legalities. You got to keep minutes.
Yep.
You report this to the Secretary of State in whatever state you're incorporated. Generally speaking, though, again, I'm going to have a business attorney that we're going to send the minutes to them. They're going to file all the stuff that we need to file, the annual report, the election of officers. They'll take care of all that. It's not a big cost.
Yeah.
Got to have an experienced business attorney. They just do this as a matter of course.
Yeah.
It's not a big cost at all.
Right.
So yeah, you do, you should officially have a vote. You elect directors, whatever your bylaws state. Every year, every 2 years, there's rotating term, whatever. It's all up to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the ownership, the people who own the business vote for the directors.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so there is a legal sort of structure for the thing, but it's not that big of a deal.
Just talk to your attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's paperwork, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
it's not something that as an entrepreneur you need to be concerned with and feel overwhelmed with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, like my career path, it's been like that has been a kind of a friction point for me to feel more free to have, because I can see I totally see the value of board of directors.
Right.
And having folks like yourself and others that are around my business invested, a little bit. And
you and I are on one board together. I mean, you see what the interaction is. And
no, it's fantastic. But
they value what you have to say.
Absolutely.
I mean,
100%.
You either motivate them or demotivate them, or you give them ideas that they hadn't thought of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's a lot of work that goes behind that, behind the scenes, right? I mean, that team, the management team is doing a lot of work to prepare for those meetings, to,
exactly.
And then to follow up from those meetings. And I would say that it's been very impressive. I actually told the folks the other day in the last board meeting we're in, and I think you had to jump off, but and I was like, guys, like y'all are doing a really good job communicating.
We're trying to.
From a board side.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like there is activity, that are taking it seriously. And so I feel appreciated.
Right.
And involved.
You should, because they do appreciate you.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a big deal, right? Because if you are an entrepreneur and you start this board, here's the last thing that you want to do. You don't want to get this board together and then not follow through. You will make things worse than better.
Yep.
Because now you've lost your credibility with the board. You haven't solved any problem. You haven't moved forward. Like it's, to that point, as within this discussion, the board is highly valuable, but take it very seriously. This is not paying for an advisor.
Right. Pick your board members wisely, though, by the way. I mean, I was on a board of a company once where they brought a guy in as an outside director, and we all could not stand him. And the CEO, as soon as his term was up, sent the guy packing. Because all he had worked at one company, and no matter what problem came up, it was like, well, at ABC, blah, 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 blah. And we just got every single meeting, you'd hear that 10 times, and we're all like, we don't give a shit about ABC. They sucked. Okay? That's why you got forced out of ABC.
That's
because
right.
You're incompetent.
Yeah.
And now we've got to listen to you tell us how ABC did it, and ABC's not doing well. So let's just be quiet over there.
Yeah.
All right.
So how do
You know,
how do you pick board members, outside board members wisely?
well, I mean, it's good to have a choice. I mean, you got to think about your network. You got to think about your clients. You got to think about your regular. What are the things that are really driving your business?
Yeah.
And develop a slate of candidates and talk with them. Interview them, find out what their orientation is, do a little due diligence on them.
Yeah.
Like
you just don't say, hey, man, I'd really like to have Mark Zweig on my board because he's Mark Zweig.
Right.
Like I need to talk with them, build a relationship, and then, really investigate that because you make that decision and you can be causing quite a bit of problems if you don't make that decision wisely. Yeah. And then I would also say, like, I would actually approach it. What are my weaknesses?
Right.
Like when I think about a board for my business, I'm like, these things I'm not good at.
Right.
And if I had a board member that could help coach me and help give me give me the 3 bullet points I need to go back to the team and get them to.
Right. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bolster your weaknesses with some of this outside input. I think the biggest thing, though, like when I was young and I had my business, I started at 30. It was only toward the end of the first generation that we had any outside board members, maybe the last 2 to 3 years.
And the business had been in
business at that time probably 13 years.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And we brought in one outsider. I was always reluctant to.
Okay.
I was probably the biggest. Yeah. I was probably the biggest opposing force to the outsiders.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. I didn't think everybody understood my approach to things, and I just didn't want any more. You could say, "Oh, you don't want to hear any. You want all yes men." No, I don't want all yes men, but I also don't want to argue with somebody every freaking time about direction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they're not as entrepreneurial as I am.
That's right.
And so I was resistant. I think in retrospect, that wasn't smart. I should have been more open. I should have felt like I had the finesse to pick the best of what they had and not the worst, or to be able to convince them of our strategy if it was critical to do so to gain their support.
So it's kind of a discussion of you feared of losing control, or you don't want to deal with that. But the reality is what you're saying is that you don't. It's not like you bring on the board of directors and you've lost control. And they're going to outvote everything that you do.
Yeah, exactly.
You really hear them. You take the nuggets that they have and you go apply. And you don't have to do everything that's being said and told.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's you've got. It's not like you never listen to them or they don't want to be involved, but you also pick and choose.
Yeah.
And you try to gain consensus. It's always about consensus.
Okay.
You want them to understand where you're going, and you want to get their input, though.
Yes.
It's going to be helpful to you. You've got to be open to it.
Yeah. You got to know that you need help.
Yeah. You've got, but again, I mean, today I think I would approach it a lot differently.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be a lot more open to bringing this. And the other thing, though, back on how you pick people, a lot of times when I see firms go down this path, the first 2 people they add to their board as outside directors is their outside accountant and their outside attorney. I don't recommend that.
Okay. That's good advice.
That's the first place they go. Well, I've been working with Bob over there for 30 years, my accountant. And so Bob's going to be the first guy we bring on. Bob may not know shit about the business and growing it.
Yeah.
He's had his 10-person accounting firm for the last 30 years.
And I'd also argue you're already paying him.
Bingo. That was my second point. I've already got his input.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're getting paid for that.
Right. And then the third point is this. If my business represents a big chunk of Bob's business, is Bob going to be honest with me?
No.
He doesn't want to cut off his nose to spite his face.
No.
So a lot of times where it's like, let's say it's the outside attorney.
Yeah.
And it's a small attorney and you're paying them $150,000 a year and they're billing $400,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're going to let that thing drag out as long as they can for that retainer, baby.
You got it. We now have an opportunity to sell our company.
Whoa.
There's 57 reasons why you don't want to do that, because I don't want to lose 40% of my income here.
Whoever buys you, they already have attorney.
Right. I've seen that more than once.
Really?
Yeah, where they become very, very negative and they tell you all the reasons why things won't work. So.
Well, we're unfortunately out of time. This went by really quick, man.
Wow. Geez, I can't believe we're already out of time.
Well, I think that here's what I would encourage the audience, the listeners to do. Like, for real, get on the site, throw in some more questions. You want to hear more about this? I think that this is a good dialogue because it's something to demystify a little bit. And it's so valuable. And I agree with you. We're both kind of saying the same thing. We wish that we would have done this a lot earlier on.
Exactly.
Day one, I'm starting a business. I need to probably figure out 3 board of advisors or board of directors out of the gate. What are my terms? What am I willing to give up? Who is it that I'm going to choose?
Yep.
What are the formalities, the legalities, like all that type of stuff? And then take it super seriously, and it will be highly valuable for you.
Exactly.
Highly valuable.
I always like to go back to the example of Miyamoto International. Kit Miyamoto, he works for this firm as a young engineer. It's an old firm. It's got like 3 owners. They're all old. They eventually decide they're going to retire. And they sell him the business for $250,000. But it's only got like 6 people or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay? So the first thing he does is he puts together an outside board. The first guy he puts on that is a guy who took his company from 0 to 700 or 800 people and sold it in the same business he was in. He met him at a conference. He liked him and he asked him if he'd do it. And the guy said, sure. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay. And then he got that guy's number 2. Then he got another guy who sold stuff to the same industry. And then he got me. Okay. So we got 8 or 9 people and there's 4 of us on this friggin' board as outside directors. But they're all people who've already done it. Okay. They grew that company to 300 or 400 people.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. The first guy he hired basically laid out the roadmap to grow that company because he'd done it.
Yeah.
He had the blueprint.
Yeah.
The blueprint is wherever there's a disaster in the world, you go there and you help out.
Yeah.
And you will get work. And it worked.
Wow.
I'm just saying that's how pivotal it was, but that's how early on he did it.
Yeah. Smart move, man.
He's a very smart guy.
Yeah.
And open to learn from other people.
That's the big thing. And that's the hard thing for entrepreneurs, man.
Boy, it is.
It's hard for me sometimes.
Oh, me too. It just gets easier the older I get.
Yeah. Yeah.
My more secure, my ego is not so tied up in being right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're not trying to prove much anymore, right?
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to either. But yeah, that's the truth of it.
That's good stuff, man. Good chat.
Been fun.
Yeah, it has. Y'all submit your questions. We want to. This whole question came from one of our audience members about this discussion. If you want to hear more about it, we'll do part 2, 3, 4, 5, and whatever it takes to kind of get this out because it's very valuable. This along with a whole other million things about business and what we're doing. So,
all right. Well, until next week.
This has been another episode of Big Talk about Small Business. Y'all be good.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Big Talk about Small Business. If you have any questions or ideas for upcoming shows, be sure to head over to our website, www.bigtalkaboutsmallbusiness.com, and click on the Ask the Host button for the chance to have your questions answered on the show. Stay connected with us on LinkedIn at Big Talk About Small Business. And be sure to head over to our website to read articles, browse episodes, and ask questions about upcoming shows.